All right, good evening. How you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem, good
Just
to hear.
had a very inspiring conversation with our Balabatim.
Yeah.
A lot of good things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are alive to the good stuff. So there's reason to be optimistic.
Good. Baruch Hashem.
So let's talk about this Sicha. The Sicha about the Kohen Gadol. What is this significance that the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur has to be married? So the Rebbe goes through a whole analysis. Is the marriage necessary for the Yom Kippur to be complete, or is it necessary for the Kohen Gadol to be complete? And he comes to the conclusion that it's part of what the Kohen Gadol has to be. On Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol has to be in his most perfect and highest level. And that comes when he's married. And what exactly is that? What makes him so, why is being married so significant that it makes him greater than he usually is, and it's necessary dafka on Yom Kippur? So where do we go from there?
Well, there's another Gemara in Shabbos, speaking about the greatness of Rabbi Yasi, the Tana Rabbi Yasi, and that brings that up because the lashon pasuk. Remember, how does the Gemara in Yuma learn that the Kohen Gadol has to be married? It learns it from a wording of a pasuk that says when he confesses, he does his confession. There's a number of confessions that Kohen Gadol does in Yom Kippur, but one of them is for him and his household, which means his wife. And that's how we know he has to have a wife, because refers to Beisai. Well, why doesn't it say Ishtai? Why doesn't it say his wife? Why does it say Beisai, his household, which means his wife? So there's a Gemara in Shabbos talking about Rabbi Yasi. Rabbi Yasi says, I never called my wife.
All my days.
Yeah, I called her my house.
And I never called my ox.
My ox?
I called him my field.
Yeah.
Or my harvest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what does that do for us?
I don't know. It sounds awful calling a woman a house. They don't like that, by the way. It's not a compliment. And then it's like women and oxen and like that. We're going to run into a lot of problems over here. But actually, I was talking to somebody earlier this week about that. And it is obvious, it's pretty clear how that could be misread. It's easy to misread it. But actually, if you read it correctly, it's an incredibly spiritual and uplifting view of marriage and of masculinity and femininity and of men, women.
First tell me what does it mean? What does the Rebbe say about that? Why?
Well, this is all part of what you were talking about before, that he has to be in his highest possible state.
Right.
For Yom Kippur for it to work, for it to do what it needs to do. And to be in his highest possible state, he has to be in a state in which his wife is his house. So what does that mean, that a wife is a house?
And why is he the only one who says that?
Yeah. Well, he's the holiest one because he's the holiest person on the holiest day in the holiest place.
No. Why is Rabbi Yossi the only one who says?
Oh, why did Rabbi Yais? Yeah.
Obviously, he was different in that.
And the Rebbe does speak about that. That it's not to negate the idea of a wife as a wife. There is such a concept, and it's sanctioned by Torah. Torah acknowledges it and recognizes it, and yet it's not the highest level.
So what makes calling your wife your family, what makes that the highest level?
So let's start with a really low level, like not just like Rabbi Yossi compared to the other sages, but even lower than that. And why do I want to talk about it? Just because I think it's rampant, and I think it's unfortunately the baseline in the world today, and it needs to be called out. And we need to, like I said, unfortunately, we have to work from there. Anyone who chooses to be offended by what I'm saying is not doing women. They're not doing women a favor. What?
Is entitled to be offended.
They're entitled to be offended. If they feel they're entitled to be offended on behalf of women, they're not helping women by being offended by what I'm about to say. And that is, everyone knows that women are objectified much more, incomparably more, uniquely differently than men. In fact, I would go further. Not only are they objectified, but I would almost say the commoditization of women. You know, you look at the advertisement. What are they selling? Are they selling a car or are they selling a woman? And it's an ill. It's a symptom of the illness of the world, that we view femininity, that we've reduced it to this product for consumption.
And calling your wife your house is not objectifying?
No, it's the exact opposite.
How so?
It doesn't mean a house, like with walls and a roof. And how's that any better than calling her a piece of meat? So now she's, some bricks and mortar. A home, a bias, means a place, an environment where something can happen. So we're not talking about the physical structure. Like when we speak about, let's say, Hashem is looking for a home in this world. Okay, so go to Home Depot, build him a home. We're talking about creating an atmosphere, a family, a life. So the lowest level is you look at a woman as, well, let me use a little bit technical terms for a minute. Chaimer and Tzura. In the philosophical writings, they use that term a lot, Chaimer and Tzura. Chaimer means the materiality of something. Tzura means the form, but that's a very literal translation. It really means the function. So like there's a piece of wood, a box made out of wood. That's the chaimer. The tzura is that box made out of wood is actually a piano. And you touch the keys and it produces music and it brings people to tears. So it's not a box made out of wood. It's not a packing crate. It's a musical instrument, right? Just like a human being is not just a bunch of meat. That's the chaimer. But the tzura is the life. What the person does with the vessel he was given. The William Mayo from the Mayo Clinic, he wrote a sort of like a critique of medical materialism in the American Medical Journal back in the 30s. And his way of critiquing medical materialism, which is basically the worldview that everything can be reduced to physical components, right? There's no soul, there's no deeper meaning, there's just physical stuff. So he wrote, tongue-in-cheek, that the value of a human being is 34 cents. Because if you reduce all of the chemicals in the human body to the phosphorus, the magnesium, the potassium, and you sell it as commodities, it's 34 cents. Somebody adjusted it for inflation. Today it's $8. So the value of a human being is $8, right? So that's the chaymer. The tzura is, what does this thing do when it performs its function? So, it's not a hunk of metal. It's an expensive, it's a microscope, right? You could use a $10,000 microscope and bang nails into the wall. It's a big hunk of metal. It's heavy, it's flat, right? But it's not a hammer, it's not a paperweight. It's a $10,000 microscope, right? So that's the difference between chaymer and tzura. So the lowest level is the objectification, where you just look at something as a thing. A little bit more able, more refined, is you say, well, what does it do? So, for instance, the other sages, they saw, well, a wife is a companion. So she's not a piece of meat. She's a human being with feelings, with ideas, and you bond with her, and you talk with her, and you connect with her. And that's much more refined, right? But it's still not the highest level. Because her purpose, her calling, her mission in life is not to be your buddy, not to be your companion. It's certainly more refined than she's there to be, a physical object, but it's still not the highest level. The highest level is that she came to this world to improve this world. And the primary way she improves the world is starting with creating an environment called a home. So, and it's another way of saying, I don't look at you as the vessel that you use to accomplish your mission. I look at you as your mission. So, I may have a body in order to do what my soul was sent here to do, but I have a body. I am a soul. So this very lofty level is another way of saying, look deeply enough to see what the function is, what the purpose is, and look even deeper and see what the ultimate purpose is. So, what is marriage? Simple question, what is marriage? There's different levels on which you can answer that question. Let's make it gender specific. Let's not say what is marriage, too general. Let's make it gender specific. Why does a man need to marry a woman? What's a woman? What's a woman? Well, we know what the lowest, crassest answer to that question is, unfortunately. Then there's a little bit more refined answer. She's a person with feelings and ideas. It's much more refined, much better. But it's still not the ultimate. The ultimate is, she is the one that makes it possible for the spiritual to reside in the physical and for there to be true oneness. Masculinity without femininity cannot experience oneness. The Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur needs to experience oneness. If he were a purely masculine entity, meaning a single man, there would be no way to harness that experience and have it be of any benefit to the world. In fact, you know what would happen? We have a precedent for what would happen. I think some cousins of yours were bachelors. They never married, Nadav and Avihu, two sons of Aaron. And when they had the ultimate spiritual experience, they ran away with it. They weren't able to integrate it. That was a symptom of their pure masculinity without the presence of a woman, without a home. A home means a place to put something.
Does it say that somewhere, that part of their mistake was that they weren't married?
Well, they had a few mistakes, and they're all related. They were either drunk or single, or they weren't wearing the proper clothes. Drunk is escapism. Remaining single willfully is escapism. And not wearing the proper clothes are levushim, mitzvahs, is also escapism. So, you know, when people speak about marriage disparagingly, not people, let's be real, when men speak disparagingly of marriage, what do they resent? You know, there's an expression, a terrible, terrible misogynistic expression, the old ball and chain. Is she a ball and chain, or is she an anchor? If you're trying to fly away and she's stopping you, what a terrible person. She's hindering my ability to fly away. But if you realize the purpose of life is Likkutei Sichos, the world was not created for escapism and for chasing spiritual highs. The world was created to be settled. Then something that brings you down is not to be resented, it's to be cherished. It's an anchor. It's a tether. So if a Kohen Gadol were a purely masculine entity, without a feminine, without his feminine half, he would experience the spirituality of Yom Kippur in a totally selfish, escapist way. He wouldn't be able to integrate it. It wouldn't benefit anybody. And in fact, it would kill him. But when he has his femininity, which is his wife, now he has a bias. He has a house. He has a place where to put that spiritual energy.
So a man without a woman is literally the definition of Tohu. Chesed without Gvura, Gvura without Chesed, Ish without Isha.
That's right.
So is that why Rabbi Shais said, I call my wife my house, not a house?
No, it's not a house.
Meaning she makes me a house.
That's right.
I become a house because of her.
Right. That's what I was saying before. The Kohen Gadol without his feminine half. That's his femininity. Your wife has your femininity. Excuse me, do you have something of mine? A man's wife is his femininity, without which he can have spirituality, but he can't have oneness.
So Rabbi Shais achieved that in what way? What did he have that the others didn't have?
Good question.
So the Rebbe compares it to seeing and hearing, the difference between hearing and seeing. That Rabbi Shais saw his wife as a home. He saw it. That's how he saw his marriage. And then the Rebbe emphasizes, what does Ri'iyah mean? Ezehu Chacham, Acharei es hanolad. Not, we usually understand it to mean a smart person is aware of the consequences that will come from whatever. He sees what's going to be born. But the Rebbe emphasizes the word see, not know, not foretell. He sees what will be. Like a person, like a general, average person, sees what already is, the Chacham sees what is going to be as if it already is. It's interesting, a little diuk. The Rebbe says, seeing is much more powerful than hearing. What's a good example of that? Yisrei. Yisrei heard what happened to the Jewish people, so he came. Why did he come? He already heard. He already knew what happened. Why is he running out to the desert? Because he wanted to see it. So as much as he understood what he had heard, it wasn't the same as seeing it. So he came to see it. Because seeing is much more powerful than hearing. But in the meantime, the Rebbe is telling you, Yisrei was not a Chacham. If he was a Chacham, what he heard, he would have seen. Without Chachma, hearing is not seeing. It's not the same. Hearing means you know it and you understand it. But it's not you don't see it. So a Chacham is somebody whose hearing is equal to seeing.
Or maybe you put it in terms like this: for whom the abstract is as real as the concrete, and therefore is able to see beyond the concrete. So,
but he sees it concretely.
But he sees it concretely. So the Chaimer and Surah, the objectification of anything, anyone, is, I'm looking at you, what do I see? 2 eyes, a mouth, a nose. Oh, that's what I see. The abstraction is, well, what do you use those things for? What's the function they perform? That's not concrete. That's not a thing. It's not an object. It's a doing. It's a verb. It's an activity, right? And then you get even deeper than that. It's not even an action. It's a reason for the action. That's really abstract. A reason, right? A reason. So imagine someone who looks at you and doesn't see you as an object, doesn't see you as a meat suit. They see you, and a deeper level, like the other Chachamim saw their wives, would to see you on a deeper level, your emotions, your intellect, and then a deeper level is a purpose. I look at you, I don't see a body. I mean, I'm aware you have a body, but you have a body for a purpose. I see you and I see your purpose. So the Chacham who's able to see the abstract, what's the abstract? The purpose. What something exists for. Why Hashem made it. How it serves Hashem. And not just to think of that in theoretical terms, but to see it as real as other people see something that's an object.
So I was thinking, Rambam says, Seif Yisrael lasis tshuva. And then miyad hein negoin. When the Rebbe looked at any Jew, what did he see? He saw the tshuva. Mm-hmm. He didn't predict it. And that's probably what it means. Chochem odif min navi. A navi hears. A navi sees, but he sees the future. It's not present. Arenu v'loyata, right?
He sees it metaphorically in symbols.
It's mare hanavua. But a chacham, what to the novi is in the future is to the chacham present. It's already real. It's the ultimate real.
You have a purpose and you haven't yet lived up to it. One level is, well, I can't see that because you're not doing it yet. A higher level is, I can foresee that you will someday be somebody. An even higher level is, I see it now. The fulfillment of your purpose. That's what you are. The fulfillment of your purpose that you haven't even fulfilled yet. I see it now because that's what you are.
Right. So the fact that Yisrei came running to see is because he was not a real chacham. Like people who say, can you prove to me that there's a God? You're not a chacham. You need proof. You need to see it. Because to you, what you hear and what you see are two separate things. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's not real to me because I don't see it. Well, to see it, you have to be a chacham. So that's what Ezehu Chacham Haroye Es Hanoilad. That's a new diuk. I mean, the Rebbe's, attention to detail.
So talk to me about how Rabbi Yasi saw his wife. Not just how he referred to her, but how he saw her.
Everybody knows that his wife is eventually going to be his family. Everybody knows that. Right now, she's not. Right now, she's only my wife. But yes, I know.
China, honeymoon, yeah.
Right. But I know, I'm not stupid. I know that this is going to be a family.
Right.
And it's going to be my family. I will become a family because of her. Through her. But by Rabbi Yasi, what was coming, what was the ultimate, was already real right from the start. Because the ultimate is the most real. So why wait until it happens?
Another way of saying that, why wait until it happens, is sometimes because, we experience, I forget who said, but maybe it was Einstein. If it wasn't Einstein, let's just say it was Einstein. That time is what keeps everything from happening at once. Okay, so we experience things chronologically. So generally speaking, the idea of purpose is at the end of a process, because you go toward the fulfillment of the purpose, and then you have, that fruition. And that's what we were getting at, right? There it is. But that's just because we're time bound and we experience things chronologically. So we think of the purpose as being accomplished at the end. But if you see the abstract, then purpose isn't something waiting for you at the end of a process. Purpose is there all along. In fact, purpose is before the process begins, because otherwise, why a process? So she's the home before they even get married.
In other words, what's more real? The purpose or the fact that we're not there yet? The fact that you're not what you're supposed to be, that's strange, that's an exception, that's an anomaly, that's not real.
Right, that's the aberration.
That's Helen Vehester, that's Tzimtzum, but what you're going to be, that's real. Maybe that's what it means. Seif Maise b'machshava tchila. The first thought is what it's going to be in the end. That's Rabbi Shais. I was also thinking, what does it mean, Gimel Shutfim Ba'adam? A Shutif is somebody who does a certain segment of the job. We're partners, you keep inventory and I'll do the advertising. I can do advertising even if you don't keep the inventory. And you can keep the inventory even if I don't do the advertising. So a shutef means I do my part. But in giving birth to a child, you can't do your part. So the Gemara says the woman produces the red parts and the man produces the white parts. Okay, so go to separate rooms.
Right.
You produce the red part and I'll produce the white part. No. It's not that kind of partnership. So really saying shutfim, that's just the outer layer. There's really a much greater oneness. I am not a father without the mother, and the mother is not a mother without a father. It's not I'll do my part. I will become me if you are there. Otherwise,
Right.
I don't produce anything.
But you have to, I just want to remind you, you're describing the highest level. Because there are lower levels, and I don't mean low in a crass way. I mean the other chachamim,
More common.
where, or the, kohanim on a regular day, not kohen gadol on Yom Kippur, where you don't have to reach that level. But when you're speaking about the highest level, then then
like the Rebbe wants us to behave as if Mashiach is already here.
right. Great example. Great example. So one level is, I believe Mashiach is coming. That's a level already. I believe it. I look forward to it. That's already a level. But then there's another level. If it's inevitable, and not only it's inevitable that it's gonna happen at some time in the future, but it was always inevitable all along since the very beginning of time, then why wait to act that way?
So the ad mosai means the fact that it hasn't happened is the anomaly. What is wrong with this world that Mashiach is not here? Of course Mashiach is not here. It's a messed up world.
Right. When
Mashiach comes, it'll be a miracle.
That's a very high level. And so when people say, oh, the Rebbe is talking on a very high level, that's true. The Rebbe is talking on a high level, and the Rebbe thinks so highly of you that he's asking you to go there, to go to that level. That's right.
So when the Rebbe complained that nobody says ad mosai with an emes, what does that mean? That the fact that Mashiach is not here is by you emes. And that's not good. The ad mosai should be with an emes. That Mashiach not being here is not emes. That's a big chiddush in the animamin of Mashiach.
Absolutely. Once upon a time, you believe that Mashiach is going to come at some point, and you're a good Jew. That's all. You just have to believe it's going to happen.
In the not so distant future.
Even better, in the not so distant future is a bonus.
B'mheira b'yameinu. In my lifetime.
And now,
We want Mashiach now, because not having Mashiach is not normal. It's not real.
So let's go take this back to the Kohen Gadol and marriage. It's a very lofty level to view this person as the fulfillment of the ultimate purpose for the creation of the world. And it's not a level that everyone is always on. But if you want to reach the highest level, and sometimes it's not that you want to reach it, but that's what's called for, that's what's necessary. It's like if you're the Kohen Gadol and it's Yom Kippur, don't tell me I'm not ready for it. Tag, you're it, Or, if Mashiach is imminently coming, don't say, let me act like a good Jew from 100 years ago. That was good then, it's not now, right? Just to use our metaphor that we were using a minute ago. So when we need to go to the highest level, we need to see the ultimate purpose so real, as being so real that it overtakes the physical image in front of us. So it doesn't mean that Rabbi Yasi used to bump into his wife because he couldn't see her. He saw her, he knew she took up space, right? He didn't step on her feet. But what it means is when he saw her, he saw her. When people talk about going to the Rebbe and the Rebbe saw me, saw into me, what do they mean? And you were saying before, to see, not that you will do tshuva. You are the tshuva, even before you've done it.
So it's timeless. It's beyond time. L'mayla memedida v'hagbola. Chochma and Bina, we're saying Ezel Chocham, Haraya es Hanelad. So there's Chochma and there's Bina. And in Kabbalah they say the Chochma and the Bina are Trei Rei in the Lo Misparshin. They're inseparable. Like a husband and wife. But how are they inseparable? They're so different. Chochma means seeing, Bina means hearing. Chochma is the father, Bina is the mother. How are seeing and hearing so compatible that you cannot separate them?
Yeah, so and in fact, you could even argue that they're opposites, inseparable. They're antithetical.
Chochma is on the right side, it's from Chesed, and Bina is Gvura. So what does it mean they're inseparable? That's the highest level of Chochma and Bina. On the normal level of Chochma and Bina, they're very separate. It's like a man and a woman before they're married. They're not compatible at all. In the shadow of a marriage, under the chuppah of a marriage, man and woman are united to where they become inseparable. So when you bring in the higher consideration, the tachlis hakavana, the Eibishter's interest, then all of a sudden Chochma and Bina are the same. Seeing, hearing, like at Matan Torah. Re'im es hanishma. And that's where tshuva can happen. How do you do an Aveda and then do tshuva? And now all of a sudden your Aveda is a mitzvah? How do opposites suddenly unite in the presence of the kavana?
Purpose.
Huh?
Purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose.
God's purpose.
Well, the purpose, yeah, God's purpose.
That makes you timeless.
So if you look at something as what it is right now, you might be fooled. But if you look deeply and see its purpose, then you could come to find out that two things that seemingly are opposite, that look opposite, that appear opposite, they have the same purpose. And therefore, not only they're not opposite, they're the same thing.
Yeah. And somehow related to the three levels of shlichus. The highest level of shlichus is, I'm not doing you a favor. I'm not just representing you. The shliach doesn't just represent the mishaleach. They become inseparable. You can't distinguish one from the other.
Because they have the same purpose. When the shliach surrenders to the mishaleach's purpose, then there is no difference any longer between shliach and mishaleach.
Right. So I was thinking in reference to shlichus, we're now going into the third generation of shlichus, right?
Depends how you, if you're talking about like pictures of, I think they're not any great grandchildren of shluchim, where you have 4 generations in a family.
Maybe,
Maybe,
but generally, it's the grandchildren, right? But also, shliach is shliach.
Right.
When do you become a real shliach? Only if you are Eisa shliach. Why is that? Because if shluchei shel adam k'meisei, if you are k'meisei of the mishaleach, you should be able to make a shliach, right? You're the shliach, so you become like the mishaleach. What is it about the mishaleach? He can make a shliach. So if you can't make a shliach, you're not k'meisei of the mishaleach. But this is like endless. So what does it mean you made a shliach? You made a shliach who is k'meisei. So the shliach you make should be able to make a shliach.
Right. I mean, it's the same with Pru'uravu, is that you're really only accountable for 2 generations. But every generation has the same level of accountability, so it's infinite.
Right. But for the original Mishaleach, the 3rd generation completes his direct effect.
Right. Yeah.
The young shluchim are great. They're amazing. They have none of the hang-ups of the original shluchim and all their strengths.
Someone was asking me about, a lot of people are learning the Sicha right now because of Project Likkutei Sichos. So, Baruch Hashem, it's good that everyone's learning the same Sichos because, I talked to a lot of different people, but like the same subjects come up, throughout the week. So someone was just telling me the other day, is like, about this Sicha that we're talking about right now. Like, what about couples who never have children? If the whole thing is family, and I'll tell you what I said, but I said the most archetypical woman I can think of didn't have biological children. So you want to talk about? I'm talking about the Rebbetzin, that that Rebbe and the Rebbetzins' house was a true house, because it was a house, continues to be a house, which creates homes. So how many, you're talking about the shliach, Isa shliach, the ripple effect. How many Jewish homes exist because of what came out of that home? And then each of those shluchim couples, what do? I mean, there are different mitzvayim, different pu'ulas that shluchim engage in, but the primary objective is to create more Jewish homes. So if you, in other words, if you look at something as what it causes, what it brings about, then what home in the world created more homes than that home on President Street?
So going back to the parsha, Yesi said, "I called my wife my home." Before there are children, not because of children. The Kohen Gadol has to be nosui. He doesn't have to be a father. That's a
thing in the simple pshat. The simple pshat. He has to be married. He doesn't have to be a father, right? And yet, Torah refers to his wife as his home, which implies a family.
So it's not that the wife makes the husband into a father. It doesn't say that. The wife makes the husband into a home. Because by nature, man is not home. Man is not a home. He's a roamer. He's an explorer. He's a...
And you know what he's not? He's not himself. Because someone who doesn't have a house is not a man. He's not a person. He's not himself without his house.
Einei Adam. If you have no karka, you're not an Adam. Karka means stability. Real estate.
Yep.
If you have no place, then you're not a mensch. You're an event. So we could introduce the difference between time and space. Time is masculine. Every man is an event, or many events. When he gets married, he becomes a place. She is always the place, because mokim is feminine. But he becomes a place through her. He becomes rooted, like you say, anchored.
Anchored.
He has real estate. Now he's an Adam. Adama.
You see a lot people who want spirituality, but they don't appreciate what they perceive to be the minutia of mitzvahs.
Rituals,
yeah. Yeah, you want to hear a great word? It says about the Meraglim, Parshas Shlach, that it lists them all. It says, Kulam Anoshim. I know they're Anoshim. Of course they're men. What else are they? Camels? So the Alter Rebbe says, as you know, the famous explanation of Hasidus is that the Meraglim wanted to learn Torah in the Midbar. They wanted to be in yeshiva their whole lives. They weren't interested in mitzvahs maisius and making it real. So the Alter Rebbe says, this is in Likkutei Sichos, Kulam Anoshim, the Meraglim, they were such men. Only someone who's purely masculine could believe that you could have spirituality without an anchor. So they were such a noshim. If they would have had their femininity intact, they wouldn't have even thought that there's such a concept. They would have known that you can't have spirituality without a physical anchor.
So then they wouldn't be anoshim, they would be Adam. Adam is not masculine.
Right. Zachar nekeva baras, Isa.
Is there a plural for Adam?
No. It's also the word of Atim Kriyam Adam about the Yidden. The Yidden aren't a people, Yidden are a person. One guy.
And it's not masculine, it's a combination. At the end of the Sicha, the Rebbe goes into a whole thing about partial tshuva. We should talk about that for a moment. That you can do tshuva for one sin, even though you have other sins for which you're not doing tshuva. And in the Sicha, the Rebbe says, not in the printed Sicha, but in the tape of that Sicha, the Rebbe says, a person can say to God, listen, Herzechain, is the Rebbe's expression. A person says to the Rebbe, Herzechain, I don't have time to do tshuva for all my Avedas right now. But there's one Aveda I really regret. Can I do tshuva just for that one? And the answer is yes. Because any ked, any reaction to Hashem's will is awesome. Even though it doesn't make you awesome. Because you still have things you're still guilty for, and you're not doing tshuva for them, and you know you're not doing tshuva for them. But you have this feeling of some connection to Hashem you want to have. So for at least this one Aveda, you want to do tshuva. Eibishter is thrilled. Just like a mikveh will cleanse you of one kind of tumah, even if you have other kinds of tumah for which you need a parah aduma. But for the tumah at hand, the mikveh cleanses you. The same is true with tshuva. For the Aveda that you regret, the tshuva is 100%. You have other Avedas. When you have time, when you have koyach, you'll do tshuva for those things too. So I was thinking that that's probably true if you say, I want to do tshuva for this Aveda. I can't promise I won't do it again next year. Is it a tshuva? Your intention is not to do it again. It has to be, otherwise it's not tshuva. But can you say for sure that you won't? I can't promise. But the Avedas that I did till now, I regret it, I don't like it, I don't want it, I want to do tshuva. So it's not a partial tshuva. It's a segment of tshuva. Partial tshuva means you partially regret, which isn't tshuva at all. No, the regret is complete. But it's not for all your sins, it's just for one sin. That's an amazing generosity of spirit. So to see every Jew as already a Baal Tshuva, even if he's only doing tshuva for one thing. So all in all, I think it's safe to say that this is Teirosei Shel Mashiach.
Oh yeah, this Sicha. All of it.
The Rebbe's whole attitude, everything, every subject that Rebbe touches. The way to look at a Jew, the way you see a Jew, the way you treat a Jew, the way you see sins and tshuva and the future and the emes. The Aved is not emes, the tshuva is emes. So you have to wait until the person does tshuva. Why? Because in the meantime you believe the lie. You never believe the lie. I made a whole thing out of this, the difference between fact and truth.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, it was good.
The sin is a fact. It's not true.
Right.
So why are you believing in facts?
Right. What did you say? I like the way you said it. That the truth is, Jews keep Shabbos. That's the truth. Jews keep Shabbos. The fact is, there are a lot of Jews not keeping Shabbos. Yeah.
So the truth is Mashiach is here. Fact is he's not here. No, so what are you going to do? Krechts about the fact or be thrilled about the truth?
This year at the Mashiach Soda, so we had Mashiach Soda here in 5 towns, and so I spoke, and I had to prepare, right? So I appreciated something I didn't really properly appreciate before all the years, and it clicked for me this year about Mashiach Soda. I mean, I knew the word. I mean, the Rebbe says it clear, but it didn't really click for me till this year. What Mashiach Soda is an oxymoron. It's a paradox, like all truth, by the way. All truth is it's always the shlishi, the higher truth that encompasses opposites, that is big enough to contain seeming contradiction. So Mashiach Soda is a paradox. How so? Mashiach is the ultimate abstraction because no one's seen it yet. It hasn't happened yet, so no one saw it yet. And that's why I believe in it, because it didn't happen yet. You didn't see it. Even the Nevi'im didn't really see it, right? A Suda is pretty concrete. Suda is as real as it gets. So actually I mentioned, because we're here in the 5 towns, so I don't know if I should have said it, but now I'm going to say it again. But Zalman Volovic mentioned to me that an observant Jew said to him, or the day before Purim, said, "Well, I heard that some Rabbanim are saying that you could hear Megillah over Zoom." It was a from a yid. I mean, it wasn't Stam talking to someone who doesn't know, but a from a yid. So Zalman said, "Let me ask you a question. After Tainus Esther, You're going to break your fast through Zoom, or you're going to break your fast in person, in real life. Right? So a Suda is tangible. I mean, it's as real as it gets, right? Sensorial experience. So Mashiach's Suda is the ultimate paradox of abstract and concrete. But that's the whole point. The whole point is that there cannot be a difference to us between the theoretical outcome and the present fact. We have to be a Chacham, a Rabbi Yasi, and see the ultimate purpose as real and realer than whatever present conditions may present themselves right now.
Truer than the fact.
Truer than the fact, yeah.
So to sum it up, let's go back to the Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Yasi said, "Miyomai loy korosi es ishti." Ishti, but I called her Basi. He didn't walk around the streets looking at women saying, a house, a house, a house. Ishti, my wife is my house, not Isha. An Isha is not a house. Isha is Isha. And Ish bila Isha, that's Isha. But Ishti, when she becomes my wife, then she is Basi. Then we become a family. In marriage counseling, do you have a woman or do you have a wife? Is she your wife? Then you're part of the family. Not just related through marriage. You are the family. But if she's a woman, then a man and a woman are two separate things. There's no family. So if you're medayik in the words, the first thing is, Ishti is Basi, not my children. Before there are children. If there are no children, Ishti is Basi. Kohen Gadol has to be married. He doesn't have to be a father. And secondly, it has to be Ishti, not a woman in the street. So a woman in the street, you have to treat like a woman. With the proper dignity and respect and so on. But it's not your family. That doesn't make you any different than you were before. You're just an Ish. But when it's Ishti, then you become a Bais. So v'yivnu Bais b'Yisrael, binyan adeyad. Those are two separate things. Yivnu Bais b'Yisrael, that's the marriage. That's Ishti. Binyan adeyad, those are the children. So tragically and sadly, when the Rebbetzin passed away, somebody was Menachem Ovel the Rebbe, Rebbe, and what I heard was the Rebbe saying, "Yeah, aber wo der binyan adeyad." The marriage was great. The bias was great. But wo is the binyan adeyad? So it just underscores what you were saying. The objective here is achdus, not binyan adeyad. The Kohen Gadol has to be united. He has to be whole, complete. His wife makes him complete. His children make him eternal. I once explained to a group of teenage boys. I was asked to speak to them, and I didn't know what could possibly be relevant to a bunch of brainless, out of control hormones. So I said to them, the Mishnah says, "Al tarbe sicha im ha'isha." What does that mean? Don't talk too much. Oh, with another man you can talk too much? Only with a woman you shouldn't talk too much? And how much is too much? The deeper meaning is, why would a man talk too much to a woman? Because he doesn't see her as another person. He sees her as a woman, as an object, ha'isha. So the Mishnah said 2,000 years ago, before feminism, before Me Too, before the whole thing, the Mishnah said, why are you making conversation with a woman that you wouldn't make with a man? Because you don't see her as a person, you see her as a thing. Don't do that. Not nice. And it'll destroy you. It'll ruin your life. To my surprise, they really got serious about it. Like, stop abusing girls. They're not your toys. So the example I give, 2 men are sitting on an airplane for 8 hours. They don't exchange a word. Because they have nothing to say.
Right.
But if it was a man and a woman, all of a sudden the man has so much to talk about and he has to ask, what time is it?
Oh, yeah.
Why are you making conversation when you have nothing to say?
That's torture when you're on a plane behind that situation or the inane conversation.
With that fake smile, with that whole game. It's so disrespectful.
But let's push it. Let's keep going. The Mishnah continues, and it says, "Be'ishtai Namra." If this was said about his wife,
Kal v'chemer.
So let's talk about that in terms of marriage. Is it only that the Chachamim told us don't go around objectifying women because it's, promiscuous, loose morals? But you can objectify your wife. If you give her a ring, then you could treat her like an object. By the way, I think that's the biggest misunderstanding that frummer Jungelite have.
Kiddushin is a license.
To take all the things that were dirty and now have a field day. And it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Because women won't put up with it.
You see, once upon a time, women would put up with it, and it just spiritually didn't work. But now, the women won't even put up with it. But it never worked.
That's why I tell women, you're complaining that men misbehave? They only misbehave because you let them. raise the standard, men will raise their standard. It's all up to you. You let them get away with it, they'll get away with it. You don't let them get away with it, they'll rise to a higher standard. That's the power of the women. It's always been. Schus nashim tzidkoniyes. In every generation. It's the women that put on the brakes.
Let's talk about this stuff. Okay, because you're talking now about a very low level. We're talking about, I'll just say it bluntly because I don't care, because I'm just too tired to censor myself. And if anybody wants to judge me for speaking this way, borrow my cell phone for 48 hours and come back to me, and you'll tell me that I'm speaking idle. We're talking about right now, unfortunately, a really crass situation where the lowest levels of objectification, of taking the Holy of Holies and turning it into a mechanical act. We're talking about turning the Jewish woman into the pixels that you were just staring at on your computer. Okay, and that's unfortunately, that's rampant. And at the same time, hold on a second, we want to talk to you now about another level, and it's not even just the regular Chachamim level, it's the Rabbi Yasi level. We want you to not even look
on Yom Kippur.
Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur level. We want you to not just stop treating your wife like pornography, not even just graduate to treating her like a human being with feelings and ideas. We want you to look at her and to see the fulfillment of God's purpose. And the answer when you speak like that is, who can live like that? Who can live like, you should just be lucky that I'm not on the lowest level. And then the real frum ones will quote to you Reishis Chochma and the different dargas of Kavanah. Oh, I love that. The real frum ones will always tell you, well, it's enough that your Kavanah is just to be saved from an Aveda. So that's what your wife is to you, that she saves you from an Aveda. So
that's novel Bereshus Torah.
But let's talk about this huge gulf between, on one hand, we're in a generation where people are treating their wives, looking at their wives like a dirty movie. I'm talking about Chassidim. I don't care. I'll say it. And at the same time, we're saying, Chevra, Mashiach's coming. We want the highest level of Kedusha, not Stam Chachamim level, Rabbi Yasi level. Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur level.
And it's realistic.
And it's realistic.
In fact, it's the only thing that's realistic. The middle level does not work. So you're either at the bottom or you're at the top. The in-between does not work. You have to go to the extreme because that's the only thing that is really true.
Just before I was on a Instagram live, and I was talking about dating, and they were asking, how do you know when you met the right one? And I said, when you're ready, the next one is the right one. And when you're not ready, then even the right one isn't the right one, right? So they said, what's ready? I said, ready is when you realize the purpose of marriage is not to get something, because then you're just looking at the person like a product at Amazon. You're reading the reviews. Oh, this one's good, but hold on a second. This one's also good. Oh, this one's a little better, right?
And what's the newer model?
What's
next year's model?
But if you look at marriage as an opportunity to give, to create a home, to contribute, then and specifically to give something to Hashem, then you'll have clarity. You'll meet someone, you'll have clarity, because you know what the purpose of marriage is. So it's very obvious. Okay, you want to do this purpose with me? Great, let's do it. So one of the comments, on Instagram, you see the chats coming in. So one of the comments was, who can live like that? And then another comment, and this was a Frum group, and another comment was, not everything in life is about Hashem. Did you know that? Not everything in life is about Hashem. So I think we have two choices now. We only have two kinds of marriages in 2021. Is it 2021? I think so. Thank God I don't have to write checks. I just use credit cards, because we either have marriages which are pornographic, or marriages which are all about Hashem. One or the other. You agree?
Yeah.
So do me a favor.
Not everything is about Hashem.
Of course it is. Do me a favor here.
Not everything is about you. Is that also a possibility?
But do me a favor here, because I know the pushback. I know the pushback is, you know what? You're making it too hard for people, and they're just going to give up, and they're not even going to try.
They're not going to try what? You're not giving them anything to try for. If you don't tell them what it's supposed to be, what are they going to try for? I've seen from experience, when you introduce the right idea, that marriage is purely godly, it is a complete intimacy means godliness, or else it's abuse. Average couples, suddenly have a direction. They know what they're doing, and it changes everything.
You know the biggest proof that that's true? You know the biggest proof to me that that's true? That if you tell this to non-Jews, they don't have any problem with it. They like it.
Because it makes a lot of sense. And it's true. It is so true. If it's not holy, it's abusive. But really,
but we have to acknowledge that that's a chiddush, because for the Chachamim, they saw their wives as their wives. So marriage is about a connection, a relationship, it's an emotional bond, or whatever you call it. And we're saying, no, that's not a high enough level for us. If you're not on Rabbi Yosef's level, it's abusive. Just let's please acknowledge we are saying something radical.
And there's a difference between the living room and the bedroom. In the living room, your wife is a wife. She's a person, you have conversations, discussions, disagreements. In the bedroom, kayan gadol, or it's abuse. Bedroom is a radical place. It makes or breaks the marriage. There you have to be perfect. But the other message is this. It is true, you can be a novel b'reshus Torah. Torah says, whatever you do, go for it. What, am I going to come into your bedroom and tell you how to behave? But, like everything else, there's a ladder with many rungs. So because you are a behemoth today, it means that's it. Tomorrow you have to be a behemoth also. You grow. So you know where you're at. You know what the facts are. The facts are you have a big Yetzer Hara, you're a big Baal Taiva, and you've seen too much pornography. That's the fact. So that's it. It's fatal. Tomorrow, make it a little more edel. Marriage has to grow, not stagnate. Intimacy should also grow in its holiness, in its innocence. So it is a little unrealistic to say, lose your Yetzer Hara, get rid of your Nephesh HaBahamis, forget everything you heard and saw. At least make a goal. At least have something to strive towards. And when you don't get there, you know you failed. You'll try again next time.
Can we say also, like you're saying before about Mashiach, the truth is Mashiach is already here. The fact is we still have some final moments of gullus to deal with. So the truth is every Jewish husband is Rabbi Yasi. Every Jewish wife is a bias. Every Jewish marriage is holy and pure and innocent and godly. The fact is, I don't want to talk about the fact, but if it's ultimately going to be that way, then let's make that more real to us than the present conditions. Let's at least start talking that way. If we can't see it, let's at least talk about it that way.
Yeah, that's called making a dira b'tachtenen. It's tachten right now. But you can turn that into a dira. I have one more observation. In the Sicha, the way you hear it on the tape, the Rebbe says that Rabbi Yasi saw his wife only as the family end result, tachlis, because that's how she saw herself. It's not in the written Sicha. But in the original, the Rebbe says, it's not that he saw her that way and she didn't. That would not be Shalom Bayis. She saw herself that way. That's a very important Likkutei, no? They were on the same page on that subject. But for her to see herself that way doesn't take a lot of chokhmah, because women have that. But for him to see it, he got it from her.
So we're all going to achieve the highest levels of sanctity in our marriages, and we're going to bring Mashiach.
And we're going to give our wives the credit. Like Rabbi Akiva said, everything I have and everything I gave you comes from her.
So giving the credit can mean just you're gracious, right? Like when somebody's honored or they win an award. So, they have to thank the people who helped. Otherwise, you're a chazan. But then there is just saying the truth. And the truth is that masculinity by itself is very holy, but it's not a vevihu, it's toyu, it's not a bias, it's not a dira, it's certainly not b'tachteinim, it doesn't serve any purpose. So the fact that we accomplished a purpose is only because of our femininity, which is our wives.
So what did Rabbi Akiva say? Shali v'shalochem
Yeah, he said that the
Shalom.
Talmidim.
What was he talking about? Why is he being so vague? Mine and yours is hers. Why doesn't he say, my Torah and your Torah is all due to her? What is shaliv? What is that? Treat her with respect because shaliv is shalachem shalom. What does that mean? Not my learning is hers. The truth of my learning.
So the Rebbitzin was a great wife because she let the Rebbe spend so much time out of the house. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, right? The way that certain Chassidim laud the Rebbitzin. She was so selfless. She let the Rebbe spend so much time out of the house. Think that's all it was? Look, I'm not gonna engage in fan fiction and try to imagine conversations that nobody ever saw. But I don't know who's listening to this right now, but if you're a chassid, you have to understand that the Likkutei Sichos that we're learning now belong as much to the Rebbitzin as they do to the Rebbe, particularly this Sicha. And I don't mean the Rebbe wrote it as an ode to his wife. I mean, this is her Sicha.
She didn't tell him to write it?
She may have. I'm not going to engage in speculation. Every Chabad house, every mivtza, every yechidus, every sicha, every letter.
What did Tzemach Tzedek say when his Rebbitzin passed away?
I lost my malchus. He didn't say my morim afterwards. That the Zoh without malchus is the melech without a malka. It's not melech. Melech without the malka, without matranisa. Malka with an aleph, without matranisa.
That's what Rabbi Akiva was talking about. Not my learning. What I am and what you are.
And he was speaking to Talmidim, not to children. To tell your children, hey, you owe a lot to your mother. That's one thing. He told the Talmidim, everything you are is because of her.
In other words, the tikkun, like you were saying, the fact that the Torah that Rabbi Akiva gave was not Tohu.
It's interesting because the Arizal says Rabbi Akiva was a neshama of Kayin. He had to be masakin Tohu.
He was also a Gilgal of Moshe Rabbeinu, who began the real Elam HaTikkun, Matan Torah. Tohu is al yenim le'yer de lamata and tachtenim le'yala l'mayla.
Right. Which means that if you're spiritual, you're going to leave this world. Why would you stay here if you could fly around up there?
Yeah. Did you hear the story that's going around about the Rebbitzin?
I don't know.
Just recently, some guy, a Hungarian, I think he was, his father had a store in Manhattan. He sold crystal objects, gifts. This woman would come shopping and was a regular customer. And one day, when she opened her wallet, the owner of the store who was a Chassidish, I don't know which Chassid, he saw a picture of the Rebbe in her wallet. He said, how come you're carrying a picture of the Lubavitcher Rebbe? She said, because I'm the Lubavitcher Rebbetzin. And he was like, what? All these years you never mentioned? Had you told me, I would have treated you better. What did the Rebbetzin say? Some people doubt the story, but I don't care. He says, the Rebbetzin said to my father, you could not have treated me any better. Does that sound like the Rebbetzin? If I had told you, you would have treated me better. No, the way you treated me couldn't be better. You don't see the fact, you see the truth.
The way you would have treated me is exactly how you treated me. And by the way, that's only a mother could say that. You know, there's an old joke. What's the definition of a genius? An average student with a Jewish mother.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about, I saw this book about the women heroes in Russia under Stalin. We know about the Mendel and all the heroes, but the heroines, the women who stood up against Stalin, and there were so many. So there's a whole book. It's an amazing book. So we were saying that there are people who try to put together a book of the famous women in the Torah. Good luck. What famous women in the Torah? What are you going to say about Rivka? Oh, she was Yitzchak's wife. What does the Torah tell you about Rivka? Oh, she was a great woman. Sarah. What? She was her kid's moil. What do you know about Sarah?
Zipporah was the kid's mom.
Right. She lit candles.
Right.
Doesn't say that in the Chumash.
I know something about Rivka. She also lit candles.
Right. Doesn't say that in the Chumash. So what? All the famous women in the Torah. You got nothing to write. But you want to talk about the famous Chassidish women in Russia? Unbelievable. So then I was thinking, what does Devira, she's held up as the liberated woman. Finally, we have a woman leader, a woman warrior. She was a Chevraman. What does she say about herself? At shekamti ein b'Yisrael. I wasn't your general, I was your mother. I wasn't a Navi, I was your mother. And that's what saved you.
And they insult her by calling her a general. Because they think that mother is a put down and general is a compliment.
And that being a general, you accomplish great things. And being a mother, you just sit at home and knit.
Maybe some needlepoint too.
Yeah. And again, that's the Rebbe's revolution. Don't be a mother just to your own children. Be a mother to your community. Be a mother to the world.
Remember the Rebbe said about Mashiach, it was Parshas Noach, in Aleph, about the derech ha'ish is to be kovish, to conquer. Anyways, so the Rebbe said about Mashiach that it's through derech ha'isha and that even men have to be feminine. You're not going to bring Mashiach by strong-arming the world, because that by definition isn't Mashiach. Mashiach is when it becomes organic. The world wants to be holy, not the world is being forced to behave as if it were holy. That we could already do in Golus. The Derech HaIsha is nurturing to bring out the best. And men have to be more like that.
And that's why the collapse of communism is a symptom of Mashiach, not a ness of Golus. Why? Nobody destroyed them. Nobody conquered them. They did it on their own. Organically.
You want to say anything else?
That's a lot to think about.
You want to give us a practical takeaway?
There was this very, very famous salesman. He's still famous. He wrote many books on how to be a great salesman. And the story behind his story is that he once came to a funeral of a friend. And he came to the funeral home a little early. So he ends up talking to the guy in charge of this funeral home. And he says, "How many people do you expect at this funeral?" He says, "Typically, the average funeral is 200 people." He says, "Something went off in my mind. The light bulb went on. The average person affects 200 people to the degree that they will come to his funeral. From that time on, every time I spoke to a customer, I thought I was talking to 200 people." And that was his success. When you're talking to an individual, look at the bigger picture. He's not just another person.
Don't objectify him.
Don't restrict him to what you see in front of your eyes. Every human being represents 200 people.
And the ultimate potential of each one of those 200 people. Everything that every one of those 200 people will ever achieve or could ever achieve.
So when you get married, don't just think of two people riding off into the sunset.
Makes a good photograph, though.
American greeting card. Look at the bigger picture. It's a family. It's a change in nature. A man becomes a nurturer. He becomes a home. Almost supernaturally. Ishti, not Isha. Everybody has to look at his wife and see the bigger picture. Then the little things won't bother you. You lose your pettiness. You have a difficult customer. He's giving you a hard time. He's making you come back again and again. For him alone, not worth it. But if he represents 200 people, then the little annoyances are worth it.
You know, it's funny because you hear the women a lot, not so much in Lubavitch, but like Litvisher women, they speak about it a lot, like my doiros. They use this term, my doiros, right? and they'll put up with a lot of garbage from their husbands, a lot, and they'll say, "But what can I do? My doiros," right? I think the men need to hear that message. What are you getting bent out of shape for? Hold on a second. Let's project this thing out. Think big. Think on historical scales.
And that's the miftzayim and the shlichus. You have to put on tefillin. That's it. That's where it ends. You have to put on tefillin, and you put on tefillin. Now you can go back to sleep. No. The whole world has to put on tefillin. So by putting on tefillin, you make it easier for the rest of the world to put on tefillin. If you don't put on tefillin, you make it harder for the rest of the... You're never just you. Nothing you do affects only you. The Rebbe's view of everything was cosmic.
That's infinity. Infinity is not just that there's nothing too big, it's that there's nothing too small. That to God, an ocean is a drop of water, but a drop of water is an ocean. A galaxy is a subatomic particle, but a subatomic particle is a galaxy.
There's a word in English for this way of thinking or understanding. This lawyer in Canada was explaining it to me. Brilliant guy. And he started learning the Rebbe's Sichos. And he says what he noticed was that any topic you pick is to the Rebbe the whole Judaism.
Yeah.
The detail and the sum are the same.
Mm-hmm.
In every detail, he sees the whole thing. And the whole thing is in every detail.
Mm-hmm.
There's a word for it. I don't remember what it is. But it's a style of learning or thinking. And that's what... If it's Sukkos is the whole Yiddishkeit.
Yeah.
If it's Purim is Yiddishkeit. It's the whole thing. Avas Yisrael, it's the whole thing. Tefillin, there is no detail that is any less significant than the complete picture. There is no human being alive that isn't necessary to the tachlis hakavana of machshava keduma da'ak. Whatever that means. Make it sound like I know what I'm talking about.
No, you sound good.
Yeah, it sounds very good.
Gotta make a clip from that.
Yeah, so there are no private citizens.
Like the Rebbe's mashal about the astronauts. The mashal about why Torah has an opinion about Mela, don't murder because you're affecting somebody else, but you light up a cigarette on Shabbos, whose business is that, right? So the Rebbe gave the mashal about the astronauts. You're not a private citizen when you're on a mission.
Yeah. Or the guy digging a hole under his seat in the boat. By the way, I use this as, I think, a very good mashal. You have this giant ship, and it is headed for Jerusalem, for the promised land. From here, it's going east. But there's a guy on deck on this huge ship. He's walking towards the west. And people panic. What are you doing? You're going to mess up the whole trip. You're going to... What are you getting upset about? He's going east just like you are. He thinks he's walking west. So what are you panicking? Turn him around. Let him enjoy the voyage. Imagine everybody on the ship is walking to the west. Now you panic? Why are you panicking? The ship is going to the east. You want to be nice to your fellow humans? Turn them around. Tell them, excuse me, we're going the other way.
No, you
We're going the other way. That's never going to stop.
You know what you make me think about? Because what you were saying before about fact and truth and about Mashiach is already here. And so the Sicha, the Rebbe mentions how he went into the Friedrich Rebbe's room in 770. And the Rebbe describes the tzir, and I'm not sure when the Rebbe was describing. It sounds like probably after the Friedrich Rebbe had trouble speaking. But maybe not. I don't know. That's just how I always interpreted the story. But the Rebbe says that the Rebbe was already in Eretz Yisrael. Remember such a lashon? The Rebbe was already in Eretz Yisrael. So Likkutei Sichos even. I think he suffers. If maybe it's, I think it's on the back of Chelek base. Those are the Acharei Pesach Sichos. I'll go look at it later. I'm sure somebody watching knows it. Anyways, it's Rebbe was already in Eretz Yisrael. You talk about the mashal, the inevitability of the ship. The ship is on course. It will get there. It's more than that. The ship is already there. You could read that and say, Noilad, he sees it before it is. Or you could say, he sees that it is before it is. Not he sees it before it is, he sees that it is before it is.
Or before anybody else sees that it is. No, the mashal is not so much that the ship is going in the right direction. The mashal is everybody on the ship is going in the right direction, even though they think they're going in another direction.
Right. The fact is they're going west. The truth is they're all going east.
So why do you have to worry at all? What do you need miftzayim for? What do you need shlichus? We're all going. Mashiach is coming. We're all going. They think they're not going. Let them think. What's the harm? So I suppose there is some harm. If you're not facing in the right direction, it can delay. But more than that, it's pure avas Yisrael. Why do you care if the guy is facing in the wrong direction? It's not going to harm your outcome. You know where you're going. It's pure, unadulterated avas Yisrael. You know where you're going, so you enjoy the journey more. Why don't you have Rahmanas on these people who think they're going in the other direction? Not because it'll undo any damage. It'll just be better for them to enjoy the process, to be part of it, rather than facing in the wrong direction, and then they'll be embarrassed when they end up in the east. So the Rebbe's miftzayim and to bring Mashiach, it's more to make sure that no one will be embarrassed when Mashiach comes. So chaparein, and tell everybody to chaparein. Do something to bring Mashiach so that you won't be embarrassed. But Mashiach will come either way. There's no panicking. Now, another recent observation. The Baal Shem Tov asked Mashiach, when are you coming? Pretty simple, direct question. Even verges on a little chutzpah. No? Hey, what's your problem? When are you coming? And Mashiach says, Kishiyafutzu ma'nesecha. If you talk to frum people, you know how they think. Imagine a frum person sees Mashiach. How is he going to ask this question? There's no doubt. He would say, what are we doing wrong that we need to fix so that you can come? Are we talking too much Lashon Hara? Are we looking where you're not supposed to? No Shmiras Einayim. Are we not tznius enough? What?
Got to be something wrong with us.
Right. Or at best, in the most positive, what more can we do to bring Mashiach?
Right. Either we're doing something wrong or we're not doing enough of the things that are right.
The Baal Shem Tov avoided that completely. Don't point fingers at us.
Whose side are you on?
When are you coming?
Yeah.
Because we are ready. There is nothing lacking in us. So what's holding you up? When Mashiach heard that, he said, you see, when everybody learns to think like that, those are your mayones. When everybody asks the question the way you do, then I'll come. But as long as you're willing to take the blame,
or blame others.
Yeah, the Jewish people want to blame themselves.
Yeah.
So fine. So work on it.
Yeah.
But that's such an important part of the Rebbe's re-education of the world. Will you stop blaming us? What kind of twisted thinking is that? Remember that Sicha? Zunte gesucht, Monte gesucht. You want us to search for you. We've been searching for you for 2,000 years. You're still blaming us? He's not. We are blaming ourselves. So this Rebbe came to the Rebbe and he said that Yidden are having a problem with Parnasa. Too many poor people. Probably because they don't have kavanah when they say Peseach es Yadecha in Acharei. So the Rebbe says to him, I'm paraphrasing. The Rebbe says to him, I'm not sure what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the Yidden Parnosa, or you're trying to blame them for not having Parnosa? You can't be a Kateged and a Saneged in the same sentence. You want Yidden to have Parnosa. So why did you just give the Eberstedt a good reason not to give them Parnosa? What are you doing? Stop blaming Yidden. That's Chabad. What changed in this generation, Deir Hashvi, no more blaming us. Not even subtly.
Through implication.
You don't have kavanah. And the Rebbe was almost allergic to that. Wait, what are you saying? First of all, how do you know you don't have kavanah? What kind of assumption is that? Oh yeah, they must be. That is such a negative way of thinking. If we are suffering, it must be our fault. That's a pathological condition. What is that called? The victim blames himself.
Yeah.
It's a syndrome, right? It's like a pathology. Even a song, Mordechai ben David, it's a Yiddish song where, well, we suffer. Yes, we sinned. Of course, it's our fault. But have Rahmanas. Yeah, we sinned. Can you knock it off already? Kolu kol akitzim. That is such an amazing statement. But there's nothing left to do. You know how many Jews are not having kavanah in Acharei?
So I said before, let's sanctify our marriages and bring Mashiach. Maybe let's put it a different way then. Being that the truth is Mashiach is here and the world's purpose is fulfilled and always was. Let's live like that, especially in our marriage.
So lately in marriage counseling, I actually say to a couple, I understand your complaints. I hear it. He's not perfect. She's not perfect. So what do you want? You want it to be perfect. So I have a suggestion. Make believe he's perfect. How would you treat him then? Treat him the way you would treat him if he was perfect. Maybe that will make him perfect.
Pretend he treated you the way he would have treated you if only he knew who you were.
Why do you have to accept the fact as fatal? The fact is he doesn't know how to treat you. But make believe he does. How would you then treat him? In other words, you want him to be perfect because you really want to be a perfect wife. But you can't be a perfect wife because he doesn't let you. He annoys you.
Right. He won't let you.
He won't let me. Right. Don't let him derail you. You be a perfect wife. Treat him the way you would if he were perfect.
You know, you remind me of the Rebbe's beer, why people missed Aaron Akain so much when he passed away, right? So there's a medrash that says that people mourned especially for Aaron because he was a peacemaker. He used to negotiate peace between husbands and wives and friends, brothers. And how did he do it? He would go to one person and say, the other guy wants to make peace with you. So the Rebbe's question is basically, you know, you can dress it up and you can call it diplomacy, but it's lying. So Aaron was beloved because he was a liar, because people like to be lied to. They like a pretty lie. So the Rebbe says, Chas v'shalom. Aaron wasn't a liar. Aaron spoke the ultimate truth. You want to know the truth? The truth is you are your neshama, and your neshama is not fighting with any other Jew. So Aaron would report the deepest truth to the person that you were fighting with. And they missed him when he passed away because they felt not only had they lost him, a great man, but they had lost themselves, because who would now remind them of who they really, really were, of their true selves? Who would be able to see through the shtick and say, you're not really fighting with him.
There's a word on ha'emes v'hasholem ahevu. What's the difference between emes and sholem? Sholem means you're right. You're right. And you go to the other one and you say, yeah, you're right. Everybody's right, so there's peace. Right. Emes means you're wrong. Yeah, the other guy's also wrong, but you're wrong. You combine the two. So Mashiach is not going to make peace. Mashiach is going to reveal the truth. You're wrong and you're wrong. Then we can get to some truth. You're both right. Okay, that will lead to a ceasefire. But it's not the ultimate emes. That's marriage counseling. Marriage counseling is the art of being able to tell each of them how wrong they are and not have them kill you. This woman says, my husband hates me. He hates me. He tortures me. He criticizes me for everything. I said, you're wrong. Your husband loves you. He's a little clumsy in the way he shows it, but he really loves you. It worked. A couple of weeks later, she calls me and says, he does. Yeah, because you let him for a change. You let him love you, and he always did. Talking to a doctor, and I said, some people think that the alternative medicines are all placebos. He says, and placebo is the best cure. If we could create a real placebo, we could cure the world. Placebo means you made yourself healthy. That is the greatest cure in the world. You want a medicine to make you healthy? Medicines have side effects. Make yourself healthy. There are no side effects. So you tell a person, no, you're healthy. What are you talking about? You're wrong. You're wrong. Yeah, this hurts, that hurts. No, you're wrong. You're a healthy person. There's nothing wrong with you.
Rebbe did that. Literally. People would come in with CAT scans and X-rays and fine. I mean, it's more than one story. It's probably more than 10 stories.
Yeah. I know somebody who brought a baby to the Rebbe who was born with a very serious defect. The Rebbe looked at the baby and said, this is the baby you call sick? Looks healthy to me. That's it. End of problem.
That's called seeing.
Yeah.
It's not just physical sickness. Spiritual sickness too. You think you're a sinner. You look holy to me.
So in the Sicha, by the way, the Sicha we just talked about, the Rebbe mentions Olam Shona Nephesh.
Mm-hmm.
That in Olam it was the Beis Hamikdash, in Shona it was Yom Kippur, and Nephesh the Kohen Gadol. So you had the whole world summed up. In Sefer Yetzirah, the whole world is made up of Olam Shona Nephesh. Where did Einstein go wrong? How come he didn't know this? He said the world is made up of time-space continuum, 4-dimensional. What happened to Nephesh? And what does it mean that the world is made up of Nephesh? The world is made up of Olam and Shana, time and space. What does Nephesh have to do with it? In the world of time and space, there are people walking around.
Existing within time and space, yeah.
Yeah. Taking up time and space.
Yeah.
Take up
some
my
of them,
time, you take
some
up
of them
space.
take up a lot of time and a lot of space. Yeah.
So the cutting edge of physics has come to the recognition or the discovery that the presence of a human being, of a nephesh, changes time and space.
Conscious observer.
Yeah. Time is whatever the nephesh thinks it is, and space will be whatever the nephesh thinks it should be. So the presence of human consciousness is as much the building blocks of the universe as molecules, atoms, electrons. The presence of the human consciousness is an ingredient in the cosmos. We're not visitors to Earth. The atom is not what it is without the human being's presence. Light changes according to the human being's awareness or observation or whatever.
This is what I was saying before about medical materialism, and about the William Mayo article, "The human being is worth 30 cents or whatever." The reduction of a person to particles, to matter that takes up space and lives in time.
Those are the first two ingredients.
But when we're talking about objectifying a human being, that means seeing the olam and the shana without the nephesh.
Right. And then it's not a world. The world is not what it is without the human being.
And the word for that, when you have olam and shana without nephesh, is pornography.
Or materialism.
Same thing. There's a Reshima from the Rebbe. The Rebbe wrote right before he got on the boat, when he and the Rebbetzin got out of Europe, Parshas Pinchas, about materialism, about Baal Pa'er. Basically, Baal Pa'er was, they used to defecate on the idol. Why were they doing that? Their statement was basically, you want to see the end of it all? Here's the end of it all. You want to know what it's all about? You want to see what happens when we're all done? It gets flushed down the toilet. And if you're a materialist, then that's right. Then eating is just excrement. And there's a physical, mechanical act that a man and a woman do. And everything can be reduced to just biology, just body parts. And that's what Pa'er is. There's nothing but just biology and body parts. And even the feelings you think you feel, it's just chemicals in your brain. It's just stuff. So you might as well enjoy it all while it's happening, because there's nothing in the end.
So what does it mean, machriv holiness? If you're not behaving the way you're supposed to, you are machriv holiness. We always thought that means something spiritual. It's not. You're destroying the physical universe that is supposed to be made up of olam, shana, and nephesh. Take away the nephesh, you're destroying the olam and the shana.
So to see a person, let alone your own wife, and not see their ultimate purpose in this world is destructive and dehumanizing and false. We have to see people as their purpose. And even more than that, you have to see them as their purpose before they've begun to fulfill their purpose. And even more than that, you have to see people as their purpose even while they're still behaving in ways that are antithetical to the fulfillment of their purpose. And don't let the facts confuse you, because it's not the truth.
So there are people who want to save the planet. So they run around picking up garbage, cleaning up the oceans, saving the whales. They want to save the planet. Every time you say the planet is being destroyed, you destroy the planet. Because your Nephesh is destructive. Every time you say something negative, pessimistic, depressing, you're destroying the world. The physical universe, you're destroying it. It's like tampering with the atom, tampering with the electron. You're destroying the world more than if, God forbid, seals become extinct. So the power of positive thinking, it's not just important to your psychological condition. It's important to your molecular integrity. You destroy the molecules if you don't put in the right Nephesh. In the Haggadah, I think Rabbi Akiva says, "Manayim shekol mako maka shehivi HaKadosh Baruch Hu ala mitzvim b'Mitzrayim ha'isa shel chomesh makis." What is he trying to prove?
Yeah, it's a pasuk. He darshans a pasuk.
Yeah. So it's not not 4 shel arba makis. No, it's 5. What are you doing? What? The first opinion is every makkah that came to Mitzrayim was arba makis. Why? Because the arba yesedis were all tamei and they all had to be repaired. In most places, the 4th element, which is earth, never becomes tamei. That's why there are gimel klippos hatmeis. Because the 4th element, earth, doesn't become tamei. But in Mitzrayim, the evil was so bad, even the earth was treif. That's what you say about America. That the earth is treif. But in Mitzrayim, that's what it was. So every makkah had to affect all 4 kingdoms. The human, the animal, the mineral. Rabbi Akiva came along and said, it's 5. Because these 4 elements have to be held together by the strong force. What holds them together? Not another element, but a force that holds the 4 elements together. In Mitzrayim, even that was treif. And how does that become treif? By what people think. The Nephesh in Mitzrayim was so corrupt that it affected the molecules and the strong force that holds the molecule together.
See, there's a mimer, Kama Milas Tevis L'Makom Aleinu, and in a ha'ara over there, Rebbe mentions this idea of Daled Yeseides. I mean, what you're talking about is a Sicha, Likkutei Sichos, but I'm talking about now a Maimer. And Rebbe says that the Fier Kashas correspond to the Daled Yeseides. So then where's the Chaymer Hayoli? Where's the primordial matter that's even more basic than the elements, or what you're calling the force that holds together the elements? It's that you're makdim the Fier Kashas with Tatich will by dir Fragen. Fier Kashas, was it anders nach von Pesach von alle Nacht von a ganz Jahr. You don't say anything specific about it. You just say, why is it different? That's the Chaymer Hayoli of the Fier Kashas. So it's not even that you've noticed something in specific. Why are we dipping? Why are we leaning? It's the fact that you're even noticing.
The fact that there are kashas.
The fact that there's what to ask. The fact that there's, questions mean interpretation of data. Raw data, there's no questions. When you interpret the data, now there are questions. Why is it this way, or why is it not this way?
So come on.
So to say something just is what it is, it's really a terrible thing to say.
But
it's not that it's not just that, well, if you're more philosophical, you ask, why is it? What's it for? No, if you don't ask what's it for, you're machreveilus.
I mean, if you don't ask about Olam Hazeh.
Yeah, if you don't ask about anything in this world, but what's it supposed to do? How do you use it?
But in Ruchnius, if you ask what is the mitzvah for, you're machreveilus.
Because Ruchnius is
exactly. It
Gashmius is matter, and Ruchnius is meaning.
Yeah.
So you don't ask what's the meaning of meaning, but you ask what's the meaning of matter.
That's why in Pnimius HaTorah there are no kashas.
Right. But you need Pnimius HaTorah to answer all the kashas.
And that is the ultimate right answer. The emes on which there are no kashas, that's the ultimate answer for all the kashas. Otherwise, you have a kasha and a teretz and a kasha on the teretz, and it just goes on and on. Like Shmuel Levitni used to say, if the mashgiach asks you why you were late, and you give a teretz, it's a teretz. The best answer is, I was not late. I wasn't late. But any other teretz, there's a kasha on your teretz. You missed the bus. Why'd you miss the bus? My dog ate my homework. But if you say, no, I wasn't late. Oh, that's a teretz. No further questions.
Getting instant messages or something, they're saying it's where we went too late, we got to stop.
What is this? We're being governed over here? It's a Russian plot.
Okay, I guess we got to wrap it up.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Anyway, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Until next time.
Chassidim used to wish each other, not sei gesund or eis vielen de Kavanah. That's the best tenets. How do we bring Mashiach? We brought Mashiach. Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah, but Zeig isn't anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Kol tov. Signing off.